Hi everyone, Gareth Baldwin here, Daytona Milton Keynes, team manager for CI Group. We won and were runners-up in last year's 24-hour in the D-Max class. I'm here to hopefully give you some tips and advice on how best to compete. The most important thing for anybody taking part in the Daytona Milton Keynes 24-hour is your drivers. They are absolutely the most important asset. So first off, we always feel you need drivers with experience of driving endurance racing at Milton Keynes, because track knowledge is absolutely vital. You're going to find a lot of traffic on track during the 24-hour, so any drivers that have got experience of endurance racing or championships, it will really stand you in good stead. Second tip, we were always absolutely regimented in that drivers had to be within 1 kilogram of the weight limit. It's a well-known fact for those that are regularly at Daytona Milton Keynes. Every 10 kilograms is worth half a second a lap in the dry, so weight is absolutely critical. Third tip, always make sure your drivers know the regulations. We were astounded at the amount of times other drivers were penalised for speeding under yellows on track, speeding in the pit lane, black flags for contact, just silly little things that you need to eradicate. So another really helpful tip is having drivers that can compete in both wet and dry conditions. I think one of the real big things that helped us with our first and second place in the D-Max class was the fact that we had exceptional drivers in the wet. You will always get mixed conditions between probably 11 o'clock at night and 6, 7 in the morning. So making sure your drivers are scheduled to drive in those slots, dry specialists at dry times, wet specialists at wet times. So the last tip in regards to drivers, I would very strongly recommend that you have tuition with one of the instructors here. I personally, in 2018, started driving D-Max useless. Had instruction, and within probably 8 to 12 laps, we were a second quicker, but by the end of the hour-long session, we were 2.5 seconds quicker. And I then went on to win the D-Max heavy class in 2022 because I learnt so much. But you can't beat track time, and you definitely can't beat experts telling you how you can improve. So down in the pit lane, now we're going to talk about kart preparation and avoiding damage. Really, really important that you minimise the use of key components on the car. Avoid excessive braking. You do not want to be having to have new brakes fitted outside of a maintenance stop. You absolutely need to avoid double pedalling because you will burn out the clutch. If you burn out the clutch, again, you're going to have an unwarranted, unneeded maintenance stop that is just going to kill your race. So you've got to make sure you avoid all of those things, because it's all about getting to the end of the race with a car in working order, with the minimum amount of stops, especially for damage or for broken components that have been caused by driver excessive use. Final tip on karts, put someone experienced in the car out in practice, and if they think that the car is not quite performing correctly, down on power, or there's a component that doesn't feel right or the handling's wrong, bring it in early. One of the experienced instructors will go out in it and they will come back and tell you if you've got a genuine problem. They can fix it or they can switch the component so that you've got a fully working car. Do trust the engineering department. They know exactly what they're doing, and they will know if you've got a cart with a problem or whether it's just you're and you can't drive the car. You might want to put that in, you might not. So the third area we're going to focus in on is race strategy. If you just turn up and wing it, you will fail. That's a proven fact. You need to document and schedule driver times. We spoke earlier about drivers that can drive in the wet or are better in the wet than in the dry. Number 2, you always want to make sure you've got 2 drivers, one in the facility and one on the track. Because if you have an issue with the driver, fatigue, gets injured, anything happens like that, you're going to be waiting around for the second driver. So you're going to probably want to operate with 6 or 7 drivers because it's a long period. Another real good tip is you absolutely need to factor in 6-hour breaks for your drivers. So you want some local accommodation because you want to be able to give people the option to leave the track, switch off and have a sleep. And I cannot emphasise how important it is to give those people a break. In addition, track staff. your pit crew. You will not do it with one. If you do, you'll either kill them or they'll go to sleep. You want 2 or 3 people that are going to run your pit wall so that you can give them the 6-hour breaks or the 7-hour breaks as well. And then a really fundamental thing that we learned over our 5 years of getting ready to win the 24-hour, you really make sure you've double crewed from midnight to 6 or 7 a.m. That is like the twilight zone. Your drivers are going to be tired. It's much harder driving in the dark. It gets cold. It's not much fun. So have things like heaters. Make sure you've got comms. So there's a number of different bike radio manufacturers out there. Have your driver and your pit crew always hooked up. And a little tip, do have a pit board just in case they fail. Do your radio checks before your driver goes out on track. Just little tiny things that will make those 1% differences. So the one advantage that you will now have that we didn't when we won the 24-hour is the driver information system on the steering wheel. My goodness, what an advantage that is. So you can obviously keep an eye on your times. You can see how far the car is ahead of you and behind you. Absolute godsend, because that is information that you can just check, ideally on the back straight as you're coming up, not going around a corner because you don't want to be in the tyres. But that is a real helpful tool to use. Another thing we would really recommend is having GoPros. If you don't own a GoPro, you can use a viewpoint from Daytona. They stick it on your lid, and obviously you've then got all the footage you need. Final tip, absolutely 100% share the race regulations with every driver and every member of your pit team. Question them about it and make sure they understand the impact of speeding under yellows, overtaking under yellows, speeding in the pit lane. All the really like schoolboy errors that will cost you a race or a podium. Take it from someone who managed a team. We were first and we were second, and we won the race by 7 laps. And but for a mechanical failure with our second team, they would have been right there with us, or possibly even won. So some of our drivers now have fantastic careers in motorsport. Henry Trainer works for Mercedes and is currently travelling around the world with their Formula One programme. Adam Thomas works in single-seater as an exceptional engineer. What a nice lad he is as well. You won't meet anyone nicer. And then more recently, Dan Monroe, definitely a Daytona prodigy that has come through. And this year he's racing in the CI Group Mini 7 Championship. We're really pleased with Dan. He is a very exciting young driver and he's already delivering great things. So karting is a wonderful thing, and you probably won't get a better place to go kart racing than Daytona Motorsport. Sandown Park, Tamworth, Milton Keynes, the perfect way to start in motorsport. And I wish you all good luck.